Good evening. Welcome to the Eastham Elementary School Committee meeting. This meeting will be video recorded and broadcast over local access channel 8 and through the town website at www.eastham-ma.gov. It is 5 o'clock and I declare a quorum. There are no agenda changes for today. So the third item is public comment. Members of the public may address the committee on matters not on the meeting's agenda for a maximum of 3 to 5 minutes at the chair's discretion. Under the open meeting law, the committee is unable to reply, but may add items presented to a future agenda. So if anyone would like to speak, just take a seat at the table. Could you sit at the table? Sure. Thank you. Barbara, this is so exciting.
Do we need these microphones?
No, they're not working.
Okay.
Just that.
Hit the owl.
Would you like to go first, Hannah? Do you want me? It's okay. So, Amy Fry, I live in Eastham and I'm also a kindergarten teacher at Eastham Elementary School. And I thought, since the budget's going to be reviewed today, I wanted to come before the committee to advocate for our kindergarten children for next year and for the future. Currently, we do not have a full-time paraprofessionals in the kindergarten classrooms, which historically we've always had. And I would like to ensure that the kindergarten paraprofessionals are in the budget for next year. This would be in alignment with the rest of the elementary schools in the Nauset district. As you know, early learners need support in developing their social emotional skills along with their academic skills. Having kindergarten paraprofessionals in the classroom helps with supporting children with self-regulate and that they can provide immediate feedback so the learning can continue for the rest of the students. They help with managing toileting accidents and teaching self-help skills such as dressing, tying their shoes, etc., which takes significant teacher time when you're by yourself. So also enabling effective small group instruction while their students receive the specialized attention they need.
Amy, I just left.
Yes.
Can you just pause a second? I want to take it away. We had a lot of events. I just want to let that in.
Oh. Where's me? Okay, thank you. So finally, the lessons the lessons in kindergarten stop when I have to stop and address things, and having that paraprofessional helps prevent those interruptions and helps promote safer, more productive classroom setting for everyone. I just want to say thank you for your time and support and consideration. And I appreciate any steps folks can take to help ensure that kindergarten paraprofessionals will be in the classroom next year and in the future. Thank you.
Well, do you want to let that?
I can push.
Yeah.
buttons. I'm happy to push buttons.
I don't see it here.
Oh, it's gone.
They're gone. Yeah, you just
Press admit.
Yeah.
All right.
I can do it for you.
Press it in.
Will do.
Hi, I'm Hannah Schneider. I live in Eastham and have for all my life. I'm the co-director and lead teacher of the Learning Garden preschool in Orleans, where I have been for the last 20 years. I heard that within tonight's meeting, there were going to be discussions about budget proposals. And I'm here because I would not be doing my job as a representative for the children and families in my care if I did not speak up. I've been very frustrated and saddened knowing that the children we send off to kindergarten in Eastham have, in my opinion, inadequate student-teacher ratios for learning. I would ask that those here seriously consider budgeting full-time paraprofessionals for each kindergarten classroom in the future. Kindergarten is the foundation class, social emotional learning, academics. I don't need to go on. Amy's did a lot of that. None of these can be taught effectively when there's only one teacher in a classroom. Learning stops when a youngster has a need that takes that teacher away from the group. And to be clear, you have excellent teachers at Eastham Elementary. They, like the children in their care, need the tools and support to do the task. Thank you. That's all I have. And I have to sit back.
Thank you.
I wanna be here because I want. Thank you. Is there any further public comments? Yes, yes, yeah.
Fully watch that, just spin it, or it's
No,
good?
you can just talk.
Leave it, okay, all right, last time we spun it. Hi, I'm Carly Souza. I spoke, one of our last meetings in regards to a full-time school resource officer at Eastham Elementary. I wanted to touch on that since I was last here. I took it upon myself to get signatures both from staff within the school as well as families, parents, caregivers. And I've gotten over 100 signatures, and had I not have other things arise, I would have continued. I'm sure I'd have gotten hundreds more, but with that said, speaking with what I had brought up last time and wanting this to take place, I found that that was a common feeling as well with many staff members as well as families with children within the school. I found it that this carries a lot of weight when looking at the staff members that have agreed to it. I probably miss 10 staff members. So I feel comfortable with feeling like I got 90% of the staff that are in agreement to wanting this. Some staff members I didn't get around to, and some I didn't want pressure. So I allowed people to, not allowed, but please take your time, think on it, come back if you'd like to. So I was really pleased with that outcome that, these are people that are directly affected by that, and for them to be on board with this, I think speaks volumes. And then when speaking to parents and families, similarly, a lot of people were in agreement. I answered any questions that I could. Those that I couldn't answer, I had suggested to email the police station to ask any questions that they may have. And I was one of those parents that sent an email. So I'd like to read through that briefly and just share that I'm not typically a loud parent. So when it is something I am really passionate and believe in, whether it's bullying or a school resource officer, this is stuff that is important to me, our family, and clearly quite a bit of other people too. So this is the email. I'm writing to you to express my feelings as to why I fully support having a full-time school resource officer at Eastham Elementary School. I'm writing as I wear two hats, one being a mother of two children and one being a part-time paraprofessional educator at the school. From my paraprofessional educator point of view, our building is understaffed. Our rotation of substitutes is minimal and often hard to find. I almost wonder if that's in connection with the fear of being in schools. Many of us working in the school are bouncing around from classroom to classroom, being flexible in our assignment for the day, and often covering for those when substitutes don't apply. This concerns me on many levels and makes me not feel confident that we are prepared if, God forbid, a horrific situation took place. We may have our practice drills, our nice color-coded emergency booklets near the phones, but the sad reality is I feel we're not properly set up to protect our children in this building. When we have a substitute, to my knowledge, I'm unaware if they get briefed on all of our safety protocols, and that's concerning. If they don't, often while at work, many scenarios go through my head on what I would do if a horrific situation took place. Where would I take these children? How could I protect them? How can I make sure these parents don't have to suffer an unimaginable loss? Myself and others are constantly on guard, though we're instructed to have our heads on swivels, for example, at recess duty, when typically there's 2 staff members to 4 classrooms out at recess. It feels pretty overwhelming to be responsible for that many kids at one time. During our professional development day, we, prior to the start of school, we touched briefly on safety and then continued with getting our classrooms set up and prepared for children. With that said, if we had a full-time school resource officer in our building and their main priority was the safety of everyone in the building and having direct contact to the police department, Imagine how much relief and comfort that would bring everyone in the building. I would like to think this would create an environment where teachers could be teachers again and not have to wear so many hats and have so many concerns, and they could just enjoy teaching and being with these children. Prior to having children, almost 10 years ago, I worked as a para educator in a different district. Though these horrific school shootings were still taking place at that time, maybe less frequent, but too often. It feels as though this is happening much more often. Last year, I returned to the educational world, and if I'm being completely honest, I would not have returned if it weren't for my children being in the building. I do enjoy what I do, and I get a lot of joy from it. However, to be honest, I'm scared for the children. I'm scared for myself. I find the 2 days that I don't work the school to be overwhelming. I hate that my 9-year-old talks about the drills as if he's telling me what he had for lunch, whereas my youngest shares that there are children that cry during these drills and that are frightened. And it just tears your heart out. These children should be concerned about learning, enjoying their friends. If we had a full-time school resource officer, there are so many benefits, regardless of how close we are to the police station. Knowing somebody is properly trained within our building with the equipment. Imagine how much better of a situation it could be, and hoping to stop a active shooter and make this less tragic. The world doesn't seem to be changing, and keeping politics aside, it feels as though the world continues to grow in a direction that feels very frightening and concerning for the safety of our children. Unfortunately, if we can't change the world, then let's start with our town and our community, and what we can do to add an additional layer of safety. When dropping my boys off at school, I would love to not have the pressure of feeling as if that might be the last time I see them or my last kiss with them. This will wrap it up if I haven't met my max time. So with doing these signatures, there was similar feedback from the few that weren't on board with this. And the few that were hesitant to sign, the 2 comments I heard were, no matter what is told to you, Carly, this will affect our school budget, and the need for additional staffing is more important than a school resource officer. And believe me, someone who works as a paraeducator primarily with children with special needs and feels the effects of being understaffed, it is my understanding these are 2 totally different budgets, because we do deserve a school resource officer as well as more staff because we are understaffed. However, I think that would be a pretty rotten thing to have to choose between, because both are so important, and it's my understanding it would just come from the police department's budget. We could use the extra staffing and our safety protocols, and that would be so nice for the teachers, not, as I mentioned, to have to wear so many hats. The second concern seemed to be,
I have to
okay,
wrap it up because it's been.
okay. I've been speaking for 10 minutes. So the second piece was about statistics, and I don't think the statistics that were brought up are related to our community. I think we have a really wonderful relationship with our police department. They have their patrol pals, their dog Nova, the middle school, the high school. They have resource officers with wonderful connections, popular resource officers, and they have a wonderful presence. So it would only make our presence that much stronger to have the elementary school to have that. So I don't think that is related. So in closing, I think there's just 2 sides. You can be on the side of agreeing to have a school resource officer and putting our children and our staff in their safety as a priority, or you can be on the side where, God forbid, you look these kids and families in the faces and we say the traditional thoughts and prayers. So if people are comfortable with being on that side of saying thoughts and prayers and they're able to look these kids in their eyes, I question if that's being on the right side of this. So I hope that this moves forward, because it's very clear that it's wanted, and it would be good. Thank you.
Is there anyone online that wants to make a public comment? Okay, no one else from.
assuming this is where I sit.
Yes.
Hello, my name is Chris Landry. I'm a resident here in Eastham. I have a 5-year-old son who's a kindergarten member at this school, and I'm here to more or less voice my support for the idea of a full-time SRO in the environment of an elementary school. Obviously, to speak as a layperson on this subject is somewhat complicated, but to be completely transparent, I am in the profession in law enforcement in a neighboring community. So safety for me is paramount. To believe that we're always 100% safe 100% of the time is an unimaginable accomplishment. It's just not possible. But to whatever we can do to further grade, to how do I word this, to better impact our safety of our children in our community is the goal. And I'm sure all the professionals in the building that stretch beyond the building in this room work tirelessly to make sure that happens. And as a parent, I can't thank you enough. But as a law enforcement professional, I know there are gaps. And we can't, again, even as a profession, can't be everywhere 100% of the time. But with that said, if this opportunity that we have before us to put a police officer in the building, to formulate better relationships with our students, our community members, our staff, to formulate better safety plans, to make sure that they are safer, all the while making sure that the environment within the school is collectively better, then I don't see the harm in it. Obviously, the question is funding. Where does this come from? Does it require reallocation of resources within the department? Whatever the decisions are between the school and the town and the police department, that's obviously amongst the professionals. If it requires some sort of other town vote, that's something that I believe would be in great support. I think anything that comes with public safety in the minds of human beings is something that is hardly ever questioned. And thankfully, we live in a community where we have the police department's back. And if this is something that they think is important, then I believe the community would as well. And I'm not speaking for the police department any stretch of the imagination. I'm speaking for me as a town voter in that regard. But when I think of my son and then my future daughter who will be enrolled in the school in the future, it's important that we do everything we can to make sure that our kids are safe. And that's just more or less my point. So thank you for the time.
Is there anyone else who has a public comment? Or, okay. Oh. No.
I have a question.
Oh, yeah.
Is there a proposed like job description for this role?
That is when we move on to our priority, when we move on to the agenda items.
Okay,
But when we get to the agenda, this period is the only time where someone who's not on the school committee or the superintendent or principal can speak.
okay.
So if you have something, yeah.
So much. Sorry. Hey there, is this a mic?
No, it's just
here. You can just
speak.
Oh.
Hello, my name is Katie Driscoll. I'm a mom of an Eastham Elementary School student and the sister of an employee. And I stand here very much in support of public safety. However, I have some concerns about just how this is all processing. We're talking about funding a position that I'm not clear, there's real clear parameters on. So we're just kind of talking about a hypothetical. We're talking about intentions. And that's dangerous. That's dangerous to not be clear about what exactly it is we're trying to do and the parameters, the formula by which we're intending to do it. So without having a clear idea of what is the problem we're solving and how are we proposing this is going to solve the problem, I'm very uncomfortable moving forward with just plowing forward with putting someone in the schools. You know, I'm sure other people are going to speak today about research on the vulnerabilities involved in putting an armed officer in a school. And so until we have really fleshed that through and heard from the public on how this could all play out, I don't think that we should move forward throwing money at a position that we don't really know what it's going to look like yet. And in addition to that, Carly brought up the issue of, well, the response you get is we need to just staff the school so that there's enough hands and that we can really follow through on being as safe as we can with what already exists in terms of protocols and having adults to respond to emergencies. And yes, maybe these would come from different budgets and maybe it would be funded from the police budget. But at the end of the day, it's all taxpayer dollars. So I don't think the issue of the school not being fully staffed is really irrelevant. I think it's very relevant. And that talking about safety is a great idea, but perhaps we should take our time and look more broadly at all that we can do that there's really evidence to show will increase safety at the school. Yeah, that's all for now. Thanks.
Is there anyone else who would like to make a public comment? Again, this is the only time period that the public can speak, someone who's not on the committee.
I'll say something. My name's Maggie. I have a daughter at the middle school who went through Eastham Elementary, and then I have two kids in the school. I'm a fourth grader now and a first grader. I am very much in support of this. My daughter, she really likes having it at the middle school. It makes her feel comfortable. It makes her feel safe. My boys really like the officer that's there now. It makes them feel comfortable. It makes them feel safe. They have no fear whatsoever of law enforcement. And given the environment in our country right now, having a positive relationship with having our children have a positive relationship with the police department is invaluable. I would feel better knowing that they were there. I do agree that we should make sure that we're aligned around what the responsibilities of this person is. But yeah, I'm very much in support of it. And honestly, there's no price that is too high, and clearly nationally and even at the state level, they're not going to do anything to protect our kids. It's up to us. So short of leaving the country, this is really one of the only things that we can do. Thank you.
Is there anyone else? All right, thank you. Public comment period is over. Moving on to the business. The first item on the agenda is the discussion of the school resource officer. So thank you for being here, Police Chief Bohannon, to discuss this proposal for just some logistical considerations about this for the background on the budget. As it is being proposed by the police department and the town, the funding for this would be not in the school budget, but on a line item in the additional town budget. It would need to be approved by the select board and the finance committee as they're going through crafting the budget. And as I understand it, it would be in the town warrant as its own separate line item that the town voters would have to vote on. A school resource officer does fall under the purview of the superintendent and the school committee, though. So under Mass General Law C-71, Section 37P, the school committee and the superintendent have the sole discretion of whether the position will be created at the school or not. So in terms of progression, the position would have to be approved by the school committee, and then in terms of this year, and then go to the select board, the finance committee, and finally the town voters. So with that kind of background, I'll turn it over to you, Chief, if you could just describe.
Sure. Yeah, thank you for having me tonight. Thank you to all who spoke. No matter what your opinions are on this, it's great to hear opinions of parents and committee members and kind of take all that into consideration. I don't have a long drawn out presentation on this tonight. I'm really here to answer any questions that come up from you folks as you discuss it. Just a quick background. There were a couple questions given to me about this at the October meeting. I think it was October that I attended here to talk about safety and security at Eastham Elementary. after that meeting, I had conversations with a couple of parents in the community as well as Mr. Crosby, and kind of realized that there was a bit of some level of support for this or interest in it. It, for the police department, this would be a newly created position. We don't have a spare officer, if you will, to just simply reassign to the school. Our staffing is adequate, but it's right at that spot where we are covering our shifts and handling other emergencies that are happening. So this would become an additional position. I think that if there's support from the community, from this committee, as far as approving the position and funding the position, I don't have any reservations about choosing one of our officers to assign to this position, and that person would do a great job at it. And I think we could develop a job description and policies and MOU with the school or whatever we need to do that would make this position very successful. On the other side of that, if it's not supported or it's unable to be funded, we certainly will continue doing the work we do now and work to make that even better with staff and students in the school as we are now. So we're not going away. You know, if we don't proceed with this, we still will continue working hard to make the school as safe and secure as possible. One of the questions I get about this all the time is it necessary? That's a really difficult question for me to answer, obviously, without being able to predict the future and whatever emergency might arise at the school. I think without a doubt, with an officer assigned in that building full time, it increases my ability to make that school more safe and more secure in general every day, whether that's just making sure that doors are locked or being another adult and law enforcement officer outside when the kids are at recess and making sure everything's safe. There's not a doubt that even just the presence of a marked police car and a uniformed officer could be a deterrent for any poor actors that wanted to come to the school, or even any other emergencies, a medical emergency or something that arises for that matter. There's an officer there, the response time is 10 seconds instead of 3 minutes or what have you. So I think that we could create this position. I think that I could find an officer that would do it very well. I think it could be very successful. And if it's not supported or it can't be funded, then we will continue what we're doing and we'll work hard with the school to keep the school safe and secure the best we can with what we're doing now. So I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me, and I'm happy to answer any questions as the discussion progresses that I can.
Could you talk a little bit about the other things you're gonna have the resource officer do? Right, like when we had,
I'm with you.
when I had initially asked about it in the October meeting, because I was just curious, why don't elementary schools have them? And I thought both you and the superintendent gave good explanations for that reason, but one of your primary ones was like, well, there's really nothing for them to do unless there's an emergency.
Right, so we have a full-time school resource officer at the high school. Obviously, totally different age group at the high school. You have some 18-year-olds that are already adults. There are crimes committed at the high school. There's assaults, there's larcenies, there's harassment with social media. We all know about that these days. So the officer, although he's not, arresting people, I don't think he's ever arrested someone actually at the high school, but he's constantly involved in those type of situations, trying to mitigate them and put them, keep them down. That's not the case at an elementary school, obviously, completely different age group of children. Really, the officer's role at that school would be to be a visible deterrent and by being visible, produce a higher level of safety and security. While doing that, the department would need to come up with a job description for that person to maybe accomplish some other tasks for the department while just physically present at the school. Certainly there would be interaction with the children. I agree that it's an opportunity to promote positive relationships with our kids. We work hard at that already. There's more opportunity if we have an officer there all the time. But the main role would just be to be a visible presence at the school.
But would the officer would be doing some desk related duties related to the police department, unrelated to the school, while sitting at the
Yes.
school?
Yeah, I would assign them some tasks to do that would help the police department as a whole with other business we're conducting, that they could do from a desk at the school while they're there, being that visible presence.
So where would that desk be physically in the school?
I don't know that yet. That's some of the details I think that would, I don't know that
I guess I'm just thinking about like if they're doing other work for the police department that a student, like maybe on the phone, or, you know, that they would not necessarily be like sitting right out front. So they might be off somewhere else. Okay, I just,
Yeah,
that seems relevant to what their role would be at the school.
I don't know that yet. I don't know, what space is available.
Yeah, yeah.
We haven't even gotten to that part yet. My preference would be that they're as visible as possible, obviously, somewhere in that front area where anyone coming into the building can see them.
Could I ask how many SROs are there in elementary schools with a similar demographic as Eastham?
Um, uh, so I know the town of Dennis just put an SRO in their elementary school. That's the only full-time one on Cape Cod that I know of. I know after the incident in Falmouth this fall, I believe they're assigning an officer to the school every day, not necessarily a full-time school resource officer, but someone to be there as a presence. But I don't know that for certain. I think Dennis may be the only one right now on the Cape that's doing it as a position of school resource officer.
I just say nationally, according to the civil rights data collection, it's 17%. So that doesn't
With, like,
reflect.
similar demographics?
No, it's nationally. So
National.
that includes urban districts, suburban districts, yeah.
And could I ask, I don't know, if maybe Glenn, I don't know if you can answer this question. Is there any kind of data that districts collect to determine needs for SROs in an elementary school?
No, certainly none that we report and none that. No. The database, there might be something within the police services, but within the education realm, Department of Education, there's no database that I'm aware of on SROs at any level, including elementary.
Is the SRO in Dennis, do you know, is that for one elementary school? It's,
I believe so, yes.
okay,
Yeah.
I didn't know if they had.
Yeah.
Several schools. I do know from that, or I've heard from that purely came from the police department. It didn't go through the school committee. Or the budgeting process, is my understanding.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So I know, doing a little bit of research, I know that I saw what the federal guidelines are for SROs, and they don't really seem to apply so much to elementary schools, but I did see that a lot of times SROs might be used for things like maybe safety care or diversion strategies and de-escalation. But I also know, and I'm gonna just ask you, Bill, your staff, do you have staff that have been trained in de-escalation and safety care? And
Yes.
so do you know like the percentage of staff members who have?
Not necessarily the
No,
percentage of
but
them, but there's a number of
there's
them,
a number.
especially those that are working with, particular students.
Sure,
Yeah.
okay, thanks.
Are those situations frequent that there needs additional people with that skill set?
And did you get a scratch?
Nicolette, I think your phone is unmuted.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry. It's bath time over here.
Yeah. There you go.
I'll segue from that. I think. Even that got a scratch or something.
Yeah.
We made, there have been certain situations, yes, they were a dysregulated student where the first thing, the safety care training is all about trying to de-escalate that. You know what I mean? So that it doesn't get to that point. But if it varies.
I think, can I add one more thing?
Yeah.
I think it's important to note also, I appreciate the question about the job description. There's not a lot of that settled on this position yet, because this position doesn't exist yet. But as far as on the regional level with Nauset High School and Nauset Middle School, there's a memorandum of understanding between the schools and the police departments that dictate like, for example, the police officer at the high school is not involved in school disciplinary matters. It's not their role. It says it right in the MOU. We acknowledge that, they acknowledge it. In fact, we had an incident at the school a couple months ago now, that was kind of bordering on criminal and school disciplinary, and we pushed it back to school disciplinary. We're not trying to drag anything into the criminal realm, and that's kind of spelled out in that MOU that school issues are still school issues. The school resource officer is there for anything major that happens, and safety and security. So I think that's important to say that.
Would there be a new MOU between Eastham and the police department, or do you think the Nauset one would still cover it?
I think we could use the Nauset one as kind of a template, but I think there should be a new one given the difference in the schools.
Yeah, but one thing that is clear with the guidelines is there would need to be a separate memorandum of understanding between, in this case, the Eastham School Committee, superintendent, myself, and the Eastham Police Department.
And in terms of staffing, if the designated SRO was sick or on vacation or out for additional training or things like that, is there then no SRO there for the day, or you're short staffed, at the headquarters or whatever?
Yeah, so the way we do it at the high school right now is we very much try to avoid that. There are a few days a year where the school resource officer is just not there, and we can't put anyone else over there, and we just can't do it. We try really hard not to do that. Right now, I have a school resource officer at the high school. You also need to be a certified school resource officer in order to serve as such. You go through special training and special classes to do that. So I have a school resource officer at the high school, obviously trained and certified to do that. And then I have a backup person that's on patrol with us, and she can fill in at the high school. She would probably be my choice to fill this role, and then I would look to train another person as a school resource officer that could fill in either position if they were, there was a sick day or
Right.
vacation or something like that.
Yeah. And then when it's the summertime, then the school resource officer just goes back to being a normal police officer on
Correct.
your team. Okay.
Which is actually helpful for us because that's our busy season
Right,
when the
exactly.
school's closed, so it works out well.
Questions? We're on the question.
No, you have the comments, or Devin, do you have anything?
Hey there, can you hear me okay?
Yes,
Sorry for
you don't
Zoom.
have to speak, but I just wanted to give you the opportunity.
That's, I don't know, now you put me on the spot. No, I think the question I had for both Principal Crosby and Chief Bohannon, it's kind of the same, and maybe from their different perspectives, it'd be good to hear from both. Outside of a school resource officer, what of, like, basically outside of an officer, what are the other things you can do to make the school safer? Everything's going to cost something. We've talked about school resource officer as a potential cost. Great. But are there other things we could be looking to do? It could be in addition to a school resource officer, but they're just different than having an officer at school. I'm just kind of curious to hear what those might be.
I'm going to defer to the safety and security.
Off the top of my head, I can't think of one significant thing. However, I think we should be careful discussing this in a public forum anyway,
Yeah.
given that, going into the nuts and bolts of security measures. That may be something we discuss in an executive session.
Yes.
Sorry for the non-answer, but
To follow up on Devin's point, though, I see where he's getting at, because I do recall from the safety presentation that Glenn prepared at the October meeting that one of the safety goals, was to do an security assessment of the physical structure of the building, both interior and exterior. And, that is something that I think would be very valuable, because it would always be there regardless if the SRO was in there that day, or whoever's there. So,
that topic is something that we, as chiefs in the region, discussed with
Right.
Dr. Brand, and I fully support that. I think that having a consultant or company come in that specializes in that could be valuable to every building in the district. The police department, we're trained to respond to emergencies. We're not necessarily structure security experts. So having someone take an outside look at that, I think would be a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, I think these, exploring as many options as we can for increasing the safety of the school certainly makes sense. And, I felt quite heartened by the presentation that you gave in October. And, I think everyone in this room is in agreement that, we are all for the maximum safety of students, staff, anyone who's in the community, anyone who's going through the school. And I think some of the differences might be in, how we achieve that. And, to Katie's point, it's not clear to me what is, bringing this, why this is coming up now, like what specific thing we are trying to address beyond just having the school be as safe as possible, which certainly, I'm on board with. And, I did do a lot of research about SROs in this country. And I know that, different districts are different, different communities look different. The relationships between officers and the specific school community varies. I worked in a school with an SRO and, the staff had a great relationship, very different setting, high school, urban. But from what I've read, and I'll share some of the statistics, statistically, an SRO does not necessarily increase the safety of a school. And even with, these big incidents that everybody hears about and makes going into school feel kind of scary, it doesn't seem that the facts support that an SRO is the right solution to that. So there's a 2023 study from the Brookings Institute that's the biggest study on SROs in schools, and it's the largest. It incorporates data from every public school in the country. And I'll just read some of these statistics. So introducing a new SRO to a school increases the reported number of gun-related offenses by 0.3 incidents per 500 students. That's almost a 200% increase. And that's because gun incidents are rare. It's not like, the skyrockets, but in a lot of these big headline making school shootings that have happened, they had an SRO. And to the chief's point, an SRO, per the, what's it called, an MOU, is not supposed to be involved in disciplinary matters. But there's all kinds of research that those lines get blurred in reality, no matter what is in the job description. That a new SRO increases arrests and referrals to law enforcement by 1 additional student per 500 students per year. So that's a 52% increase. And it changes the school's disciplinary structure. So a new SRO increases the number of suspensions by 12 students per 500 students and expulsions by 1 student per 500 students. This is the case even though SROs do not have formal authority to suspend or expel students. There's all kinds of research on that, situations get elevated to become criminal situations. And the thing that feels most significant to me is that adverse effects are more pronounced for boys and girls, for students with disabilities, and for Black students. There's also a lot of research about how Black students are less likely to feel safe in the presence of SROs. So I know this is looking at schools nationwide. I don't think anyone is doubting, the good intentions of anyone working in our school, anyone in the police department. But to me, these statistics really give me pause and lead me to believe that this is not the right solution for, ensuring that our schools are as safe as possible. And I really respect the petition that Carly got. I will say that, anecdotally speaking to a lot of people in the community, signing a petition, someone standing in front of you, it does not necessarily signify that, if you sit down and you consider the facts that you support that. I was just kind of trying to talk to people and figure out their support. And I didn't feel, most people I spoke to did not support this when we actually sat and talked it through. It's different than, having a petition presented to you and setting. So that's my 2 cents for now.
Deb, do you have?
I have read a lot of the research that you brought up too. So again, that gives me pause. I do want to say that I think having opportunities for community engagement and community partnerships with the police department, I think is so valuable. I just would want to carefully consider if the way to do that would be with a full-time SRO in the elementary school.
Devin, do you have anything more?
No, nothing to add right now. Thanks.
Okay. Yes, I think this topic, I mean, I brought it up in October. It was a question I had wondered as a parent. And it obviously has a lot of emotion around it. But I, I think it's a topic that needs to be looked at carefully and over a time period to get the entire community's feedback on it as well. This to me feels, because of the budget season that's coming up and because there's going to be an override anyways, the timing feels like we haven't been able to give it enough thorough consideration and talked to and canvass enough of the community members and honestly have us discuss it in a public forum, you know, sufficiently. And I too have seen the statistics and more importantly, just speaking to experienced educators as well. I think there's something to be said while that I saw one estimate that less than 5% of elementary schools in Massachusetts has an SRO. I think there's and they've had the same, and we all know the news, right? The same historical experience. So I think there is something to be said for that there's meaning to that apart from the budgetary standpoint of it. So my thoughts. Does anybody have? Did you want to say anything?
No.
You don't have to.
No, it's fine.
Okay. All right, is there any more questions with the chief or? Okay, so given that the select board and the finance committee, that the town needs an answer from us on this, would anyone like to make a motion to approve the position of a school resource officer for the fiscal year 2027? Okay, so seeing no motion for the school resource officer, that means that this position will not proceed to the select board and finance committee for this year's budget. I want to thank the chief for coming and spending his time and for all of the time that you have spent on this topic. And I do want to reiterate something that the superintendent actually said in his October safety meeting, that the safety and the security of the school and everyone in there is an ongoing topic. It never ends. The discussion on it never ends. And that the safety of the school is of the utmost importance to this committee, and it will continue to be a topic that discuss. We are going to skip over the school improvement plan.
Yeah, I mean, we can put that through.
Um,
I'm not gonna say a whole lot. It's up to you.
yeah, I mean, you can
Let me just
say,
get through it,
yeah, we'll just get through that
So
part of it.
the school improvement plan was presented to the school committee in June of last year for your approval. But just to quickly review it, it's a 2-year plan, okay? And it aligns with this present strategic plan, which is also going to be revised. And basically aligning itself with the 5 goals of the strategic plan: 21st century skills, global citizenship, social emotional learning, professional development, and community schools. So our school improvement council, which is comprised of staff members, community members, and myself, kind of work through it and to highlight some of the things that we've been working on that's included in the plan. By the way, the plan is on the website for people to take a look at. Most of the staff right now are implementing, and they're in their second year of implementing the new ELA program. That's part of a goal and an initiative here in the plan. There's also district-wide collaboration and professional development that's ongoing, and a strong focus in social emotional learning with continuing with the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence ruler approach, and also second step using those resources as well to teach bully prevention. And then also teachers and adjustment counselors, school psychologists are working closely with students to continue to reinforce and build social skills and mindfulness strategies. Part of the plan also is community-based initiatives, and we're heavily involved with different community organizations and doing our own community outreach as well. And those things are listed in the plan as well, which is on the website. So that's pretty much, you guys are aware of this improvement plan. So it's a 2-year plan, and it will be revised and amended and presented to you in the spring of 27. Just to give you a quick update on some physical improvements at school is that the Community Preservation Committee, right, has just awarded, thank you, Mary Shaw, awarded the school $150,000 for playground improvements. So we appreciate that. And then we're always, improving or maintaining the school physical facilities. And this, all of these funds that do not come out of the operating budget, anything that has to do with the school facilities comes out of our capital plan. And so we're just in the process. We've updated all of the external, speaking of security, all of the external cameras, and now we're going to update the internal, the cameras that are inside. So those are some of the things that we're working on this year. Okay.
Great, thank you.
Any questions? Anybody? Comments? Good.
On to the chair's report. My only item is that the school committee has a one-pager that goes into the town annual booklet that I'm going to update. I'll probably pass it on to Lindsay for some wordsmithing. But I need to hand it in probably before our February meeting, so I will just email it around so you guys know about it before that meeting. So moving on to the superintendent's report.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. There's a memo that accompanies the report. If it's in your packet, I'll just speak briefly to the items that are included there. First up, work continues around the entry planning phase that I've shared with you before. But, capitalizing on this time to really try and get a deeper sense and an understanding of our stakeholders here in the Nauset community, broadly speaking, around what's on their mind as it relates to our school system and our future. We had 3 community meetings back in December that we held and we're open to all to attend. And now we're shifting our focus to staff meetings. When I say we, Vicki Saldana, our assistant superintendent, and I, she's joining me in this effort. It's great to have her along for this. We have meetings, voluntary meetings scheduled with at all schools with all staff over the course of January. We held our first meetings last week in Orleans in the middle school, and we'll be at the Eastham Elementary School on January 21st. And you can see the rest of the schedule there. You may recall that there was also a survey that was sent out back in October on this topic, and we had a little over 300 responses. We're working on gathering and sifting through that feedback. And at the joint school committee meeting in early February, I'll share a preliminary sort of glimpse of what that's looked like across all of that data and feedback as that's coming in. So stay tuned for more on that. The Nauset Regional High School, this is sort of old news, I guess, if you will, at this point in time, but still pretty fresh. Phase 2 and the final phase of that building project came to a completion just midway through December. And pleased to be able to say that school and that final phase completely opened on January 5th. And so the new and final phase is fully occupied now by students and staff and programs. A shout out to the many high school staff who I know came in over the winter break to get their rooms in that new space set up and ready to go. To the administrative team and to really the building committee as a whole for helping get to this place in time. The modular classrooms will soon be demolished in the next couple of days. So the final phase will be to reconstitute that site where those modulars were and finish up the project. There's lots of punch list items to work through, of course, as you can imagine, a project this size, but just an absolutely amazing facility. I know many are starting to get in there. And we have just a friendly reminder, the ribbon cutting ceremony planned for Saturday, March the 14th. So stay tuned for more information on that. The regional, the second, I guess, second annual, you call it that, the regional school district budget workshop has been, a date's been set. This was set back in the fall. And I shared that with the town managers, and we're gonna follow it up with the official invitation probably tomorrow for January the 29th at 5:30. It's the exact same week as was the case last year when this was held, and it will be in the new high school. We're just finalizing some logistics and spaces there, so we'll make sure to include that in that invitation to all of our towns. January 20th is Professional Development Day. Just as a friendly reminder, there's no school for students on that day, and lots of hard work going into providing an array of offerings for our staff to support their continued growth and development in the district. And then lastly, just to share, there's a survey that we welcomed in sort of partnership, I guess, if you will, with a community organization who's looking to gather information on the missing middle, in quotes, housing here on Cape Cod. And really an effort to try and better understand through data collection for middle income professionals, including such as educators and fire and healthcare workers, et cetera. And so just to bring attention to this has nothing to do with the school district itself, but we were approached and we just thought that this would be a good thing to try and help support in their efforts. So just to bring to your attention that. And I'm happy to take any questions that members of the committee have on any of those items tonight.
Just want to say thank you for, I don't know if you organized it, but the tour of the high school that you opened to the school committees last weekend, it was amazing. I want to enroll.
Yeah, and we'll look to extend an invitation to those that are going to be attending the budget workshop as well before that on January 29th. So yeah, opportunities to get into that great space. So thanks.
Okay, the strategic plan is the next.
Sure, thank you. There is also a memo that accompanies this, and as you know, and as we've talked about, we're stepping towards launching the important work to develop a new strategic plan for the Nauset Public Schools. Thank you to Sarah as representative of this committee who joined in partnership with other school committee members, and Ms. Saldana and I who have been engaged for a number of weeks on taking a look at possible consultants to help steer this work in partnership with us. After meeting with and reviewing a couple of different consultants, we landed on TLA, or Teaching and Learning Alliance. Seemingly a great fit, a great organization who's done some terrific work in other school districts, and we're really excited to have them help lead this work. The important thing, I think, just to draw to your attention to, as we at the back of the memo moving into the preparation for the launch of this work. As I've shared with you before, the end goal here is to have a new strategic plan in place before the school committee for their consideration and hopeful approval by the end of June. Now that seems a little bit ambitious, and in some respects it is, although we totally have in conversation with TLA the understanding that this can absolutely be done. This is a calendar that they've done work with in other districts as well. So, but I think most importantly, you can see the schedule that we've set out, and it's one meeting a month. So it certainly would be, so it's a lot to ask from volunteers to be a part of this group. I know, as I've learned quickly, there's an awful lot of committees and work that's ongoing by many throughout our communities here. So I recognize that this is one more, but we're hopeful that we'll be able to attract interest, and I have to say that that's already the case. We've had a good response thus far. Last week, we sent out an invitation with these dates, and we have, I think it's 10 or 12 people thus far. We'll send out a reminder as well, too. As you can see, the hope is to have some broad representation from our school committees, of course, our parent guardians, community members at large. We recognize that there's lots of folks that may be interested in this work, even if they don't have a child connected to one of our 7 schools, but we'd like to welcome them into this work. Staff representation across all of our schools, students, particularly targeting a couple from the middle school and a couple from the high school, and then school and district leaders. So stay tuned for more to happen here, but thank you again to Sarah and the other school community members that helped with us, and we're really excited to get this underway. As you can see, Monday, January 27th will be the first meeting. Stay tuned.
Great, and now on the budget,
Now we're on the budgets.
small topic.
Not really a small topic. So, yeah, this is, and with full apologies, but I appreciate your understanding. These are hot off the press, and we're given the current situation within, as you know, within our finance department, and working as quickly as we can with Paul Donlin and Bob Dutch, who are stepping in to help us develop the multitude of budgets across the school district, Eastham, of course, being one of them. So it is linked to the agenda for those that may be following along with that, and we'll make sure that this is, of course, part of the whole package. So just to walk you through, this is deliberately using the term preliminary. This is a high level view, and work has been continuous and ongoing to try and refine Principal Crosby's requests, along with all of the other many things that, as I've come to learn, make up this particular budget. As you know, there's some important other components that largely sit outside of the Eastham budget, such as the central office school budget, as well as pre-kindergarten, but they're yet important components of this budget. And so in the cover memo that attaches to this, I just wanted to acknowledge that. I know some are well aware of those things that I've learned, but not necessarily everybody. And so I just wanted to bring some context to that. I think it's important to point out that as of this evening, as we sit here and we look at this preliminary budget, to the best of my knowledge, this captures all of Principal Crosby's requests. There's a new physician included in that as an example, a special education teacher, if I'm not mistaken. So at this point in time, all of those requests are in here. I'll also point out that there's a central office budget subcommittee, as I point out in the memo. They have been active. I'm sitting in on all of these subcommittees, including this one. They have another meeting, I think it's next week, if not the week after, with the full hope that the central office budget will be fine-tuned and finalized by the end of January, earlier than I think it was the case last year. So right now you can see that preliminary number, a number that I would suggest to you should only be going down if there's any further recommendations from that subcommittee. The pre-K program, this is a big topic, as I've learned, and a big topic in the sense of this was part of the reclassifications that some of you who were around the table last year, I guess, were more engaged with and involved with. This program is an essential program that we offer as the Nauset Public Schools for our youngest students. But there's a lot that goes into this program. It's physically hosted in Brewster. It is open to, and we are required to reserve spots for students of any of our 4 communities, specifically those with special education requirements or needs, but also partner students in the community whose families might wish to have them participate in this. You can see that right now this is a comp, and I'm happy to go over this either tonight or at a future meeting. It is a complicated aspect of programming that I've come to learn, and Principal Crosby knows this too. But the share right now it is shared over all four school budgets, elementary school budgets. And you can see the costs right now, the proposed costs, just a little bit over 500,000 for pre-K for fiscal year 27. The second page of the memo provides you with a high level comparison between the 26 operating budget and the fiscal year 27 preliminary budget. I'll just point out, if you're looking at the left-hand side under the operating budget, what is just as hopefully a friendly reminder, what you have is the total budget. So think about that as the total roll-up costs of all of the different line items identified necessary to operate the Eastham Elementary School. There are a number of offsets, which we think of them as credits, think of them as just reductions, a way to bring down that overall budget. They include such things as title funding, circuit breaker funding. Eastham is in receipt of rural aid, what's called rural aid. So all of those collectively are identified as offsets. as I've come to learn this year's budget had just a little over $210,000 in offsets. And so that brought down the total budget that was voted at last town meeting as $4.8+ million. On the right-hand side of that table, you can see where we sit as of right now, as of this evening. And I recognize that this is a large increase. Again, in true sort of this form of putting this all in front of you as a committee, and then administratively us working through the next phase, which we'll talk about. You can see the total budget right now sitting at a little over 5.7 million. Part of this increase is driven by additional out of district costs for students who Eastham district is responsible for. We're predicting offsets at this point in time. It's a little bit early, so broadly speaking, we're anticipating a similar level of offsets as this year, but that could change, give or take. And you can see what that would translate to if this budget were to move forward as it stands right now, which I recognize this is a large increase, of course, work to be done. And so that brings us to the next steps. It certainly is understood that we have work to do to refine this budget, to take a closer look at the requests that we have as part of this budget. And then my proposal would be to come back to you at your next regularly scheduled meeting, February 10th, with any adjustments and any identified possible reductions that we think could reasonably be made to align this budget to an overall increase in an overall budget that, as a school committee, you ultimately in March would be comfortable and could get behind to support. So there's still a lot of work ongoing, but we wanted to provide you with a snapshot of where we're at right now. The accompanying documentation is attached to this memo. I know there's a lot of line items, there's a lot of numbers in there, but as I've understood, this is what you are accustomed to seeing in the past, and so we're trying our best with Paul and Bob to give that to you. I know some of these things look a little bit different, but we're doing our best to try and provide you with the level of detail that you see in the past. So I know that's a lot. I know you're just seeing this for the first time. I fully recognize that. Again, I appreciate your patience and understanding. This is not where I like to be, and as we go forward, there'll be lots more lead time for you to look through things. It's just unfortunately a victim of circumstance right now in the department. I'm happy to take any questions that members of the committee have on any of the current information in this budget plan.
Do you think there'd be a refined budget by the budget workshop, or you're more aiming for the February? I know there's a lot.
Yeah, I've thought a lot about that, not just about the Eastham budget, but all of our other budgets. And one of the things that I'm learning quickly is it's a little trickier with having the one scheduled meeting a month for the elementary districts, whereas with region we have two. So I don't think that it would be possible, and I think with the time frame that we have, I think that it's also certainly something that I would want to bring back any proposed recommendations to you as a full committee. Before, they go to a budget workshop.
Okay.
So
That's how it was last year, which was fine, because then it'll, for example, the Eastham Finance Committee time to look at this and then
Sure.
can ask questions at the budget workshop.
I got a question. I didn't have time to look through this, so I'm not sure if it's in here. But something you raised at the last meeting, and I don't know if it's specific to Eastham Elementary or regional, but that you were talking about hiring an assistant nutrition director. And I was just curious, like, where that came from, what need that's filling. And I don't know if it's specific.
Yeah,
to
no,
Eastham Elementary.
the assistant food services director is not yet, it's a proposed position.
Okay.
It's not there's a couple of things on that. Thank you for raising that. It's a newly proposed position. It's a position that it's been, it still has to go before the union 54, for their consideration, which will be in the February meeting. But the proposal for that position from a financial standpoint is to cover that fund, the expenses entirely through a revolving account. So there's a revolving account that's set up in which I'll use the term, the district as a whole receives from the state for food services, for nutrition. And so that would be a self-funded position. With that as a revolving fund, which is entirely appropriate to do. We offset the costs for the director right now. And that position, in that discussion, you'll under it, the February 4th meeting have more insight in terms of what's being proposed for that position. But generally speaking, an understanding that there's a lot of interest in continually to grow and evolve our programs and our nutritional programs within the 7 schools, including farm to table and much greater. So that's really where the interest in.
Okay. That makes sense. I didn't realize it was its own.
Yeah.
But I'm, hearing some of these concerns that are raised of other areas that people are interested in, funding, but this money could not, for example, fund paraprofessionals in a classroom.
And just that position actually sits within the central office budget.
Got it.
Because it would be a shared position across the 7 schools, should it be approved. Can't tell you the budget line number yet, but by June, I probably can.
That was gonna be my next question.
And then they're all gonna change with the new financial reporting system that comes to better, right?
Any other questions for Glenn on the budget for next year?
Yeah.
All right, now the next item is the review of this year's monthly financial report.
Yes, so you may recall earlier in the year, there was we did have sort of a little higher level overview of the financial, the budget, the budget fiscal year 26 budget today. And it certainly recognized, not just here in Eastham, but across the board, there was a desire to have a little more detailed information. So that's the shift that's happening with Paul Donlin and with Bob Dutch to try and respond to that. So what you're seeing here is a printout from our SoftWrite financial or reporting system, if you will. So it gives you a deeper dive into level of details for the different categories. Again, perspective of the fact that there's a lot of information here, but I think the important thing is the bottom line and where we're standing right now, which is to say, where we sit here middle of January, there are no concerns that we see from from the overall budgetary standpoint. And this is being tracked by finance department and obviously if there's anything that emerges as of concern, we will bring that to you. But right now, from our vantage point, we're tracking them all. There is a much closer, we'll certainly talk about this probably in the budget workshop, and I think we've talked about this before here in all of our committees. One of the things that we've understood, when I say we, I mean Paul Svanlin and Bob Dutch and I, is that we're trying to be far more specific in approaching the encumbrances. Far more, it seems like in the past, there might have been some over encumbering of funds that didn't necessarily always provide a clear picture. We're trying to be more cautious and aware of that, still ensuring that, encumbrance, right, identifying of holding a level of funding to make sure that the bills can be paid, that people can be paid, but not trying to extend that beyond what is reasonable. So there's far closer attention to that this year. And I think with that, a closer bottom line that tells the true story of sort of where we're at. So I know you're seeing this rather late. You've not had a lot of time to take a look at this, but I'm happy to answer any questions. And if I can't answer them, I'll get you the answers. And that includes after this meeting, if there are, once you've had a chance to take a closer look.
Bill, did we have this year, has there been surprises moving into the district in terms of special education costs? That hasn't happened this year.
Actually it has.
Oh, it has, so it's already, okay. So even with that, we're doing
I haven't
okay.
looked closely at this, but I'm sure it's
Okay.
hopefully it's been
It is, yes.
Yeah. Thanks.
Great. Okay,
Thank you.
any questions on that? All right. We have, moving on to approving the gifts and grants, we have, two. Oh, this that's up if it's a gift or a grant. We have two grants. To accept one in the amount of $500 from Food Pod 5. And the other in the amount of $1,000 from Nauset Garden Club. And I'd like to also extend a thank you to Andrea Howard, who's a fourth grade teacher that applied for these grants. So may I have a motion to approve the two grants as printed in the package?
I'll make a motion to approve the grants.
Second. Great. All in favor? Aye. Devin?
Yes. Yep.
Great. 4-0. Okay, the last item on the priority business is the principal search.
Sure. So as everyone is well aware, Mr. Crosby is prepared to set sail at the end of the current school year, and that means that we have an important task to look to, and that is searching for the next principal of the Eastham Elementary School. In your packet are a couple of documents that I just wanted to have the opportunity to bring some attention to. First off is you'll see first off a cover memo, sorry, and it provides an overview of the documents that are attached. We have I'll speak to the timeline in a second, and then informational brochure, for lack of a better word, around the position. But I also want to talk about the proposed composition of the search committee, and I'd love any feedback from members of the school committee if you think that we have this right, or if you'd like to see that modified or changed. And I think first to say that one of the many tasks and responsibilities that I truly do believe that I have as your superintendent is the selection and hiring of school and district leaders. And so in this case, the principal of the Eastham Elementary School. It is a decision ultimately that as a superintendent, I would make as a final decision, but through a process that is deliberately intended to include many voices along the way. And that includes those that serve as part of the search committee. And it also includes the feedback opportunities, of which there will be a few for staff and for members of the community to provide their feedback. And I know that you're just getting to know me and we're just getting to know each other, but I can assure you that feedback I have always found is essential, and I really carefully consider in making these kind of decisions. The proposal for the search committee, as you can see, it is suggested to include two parents, guardians, or caregivers, one member of the PTO, one member of the school committee, and then from the staff, potentially trying to provide representation from all of our different staffing groups, the paraprofessional, general education teachers, special education teacher, or related staff and administrative assistant. And obviously all of this is if we can have folks who are willing to serve, get involved. And sometimes that can happen. I know sometimes that can't. People have busy lives, and this is another thing to ask people to do, but this would be the ideal composition. One of our elementary school principals also to be a part of this, and then a couple of the folks from the central office leadership team, with bringing attention to the fact that our director of human resources and assistant superintendent of teaching and learning will be collaborating and sort of leading this committee. It's with intention that I don't sit on the search committee, but I get involved after the search committee moves forward a couple of finalists. The search timeline you can see is attached in a separate document, and we've tried to map out, and this is of course tentative, but I think this will work with the many other things that are happening around the district and such. But I think the important point is that we're ready to launch this search January 26th. I think that we're at a great time, very appreciative in this case of Bill's signal to us that his plans are to retire, and he's given us a great runway to get out there early. And I think that that's really important, and to do our very best to attract potential candidates to this role. So the proposal is to launch the search in January. You can see the different steps along the way. We've tried to to really map it out, giving the potential candidates a good window of time to, you know, to learn about the position and then to in turn to apply. And if all things go as planned, we start the end of January, and hopefully by the 1st of April, we will have the next principal and the successor to Mr. Crosby in place. So I won't go through all of it there, but you can see the general intent. And I guess maybe just one thing to bring attention to is as we get further in the process, the importance of having potential candidates visit the Eastham Elementary community, get to meet with staff, get to meet with interested community members. Is always an important part of these kind of searches, and I think it's you know, it's got to be a match, and we have to make sure that we have the potential right candidates. So lots of opportunity for people who are not necessarily involved in the search committee to get involved in the process. And then lastly, the proposed sort of brochure, if you will, informational. There's lots of people that probably know an awful lot about Eastham, Cape Cod, Eastham Elementary School, but maybe not. And so we tried to design this with intention of somebody who may not have ever heard of the school and all that it has to offer, which, as I've come to learn, is a whole heck of a lot. A really attractive position, I think, for anyone who's interested in this kind of leadership position. So happy to take your feedback on the the composition of that committee. And if afterwards, when you've had a chance to maybe take a look further at, say, the brochure, or certainly the timeline, anything that you'd like to suggest is modified or adjusted. But I want to thank Vicki and Deirdre, our director of HR, who helped put this together for me, and any feedback would certainly be welcomed.
If we did have feedback on the brochure after this
Yeah,
meeting, who
yes.
should we?
You can send that to me or Jen Snowden is best.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just really appreciate kind of the breadth of the search committee would include. I really like that you're including a paraprofessional and 3 teachers. And are you hoping that it'll be, you know, maybe primary and upper elementary, or?
Yeah, I mean, we'll again sort of see
Whoever
who has the
volunteers.
bandwidth and capacity to volunteer, but yeah, as much as we can spread that out, that
Yeah.
would be ideal. But again, as I said, I know this would be a bit of time for people and folks are busy, so, you know. Yeah.
Well, it's nice that you're inviting them to the table.
We had more people interested. I mean, that Deirdre, the human resources director, is really has a lot of experience in this.
Yep.
I'd have her make that call if we wanted to.
Yeah, I think, you know,
we
this
have
is.
3 parents interested.
Yeah, I don't think that this is, it has to be hard and fast. I mean, this is, I think it's 12 or 13 as it stands. Not that you can't run a search with a large group, but that's starting to get into, you know, a little bit of a larger committee. So I think sort of mindful of that, but there's not a necessarily magic number for this. But broadly speaking, I think most importantly is effort to try and have all of the stakeholders represented. So.
Okay, and the looking for the committee members is gonna go out the same
Yes.
that the job posting.
It may not necessarily the same week, but certainly if it doesn't, you know, early first thing in February.
Okay.
Because we want to give a chance for folks to apply and then have an initial meeting. And one of the things setting the calendar this way too, I should just note is, what I definitely found the more I do this is when we have the date set, that allows somebody who's considering getting involved to be able to evaluate the calendar and see if it's even possible.
Right.
And we did that with this, as you can see, with the strategic
Yes.
plan.
I love it. I think it's a great idea. Plan. Okay. Great,
Yeah, so
so,
if you see anything or you think we maybe should have included something in the brochure, just please follow up.
well, I know the budget number is. It needs to be changed since we just looked at it. Okay, so we'll have that as a to-do on the committee, if you have any comments after you. Review the brochure to send them to Johnston.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there any, were there any more questions or comments for Glenn about the? We're moving on to reports and information. Is there, any information from any of the subcommittees that I need to share.
In the interest of time, I
Right.
could, yeah,
Okay, we'll
do
just
it
do
at
it,
time.
yeah. Okay, great, same with mine, and then any future agenda items that I'd like to see. Yeah. Okay, and I don't have any specific ones. And so we need to approve the minutes from December. So can I get a motion to approve the minutes
Motion to approve the minutes
from December 6th?
from December 16th.
Great, thank you, Lindsay.
And I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
I,
Aye. Devin?
Yep. I approve.
Okay, great, 4-0 approved the minutes. All right, can I get a motion to adjourn at 6:25?
will make a motion to adjourn.
Yeah. Second, okay, all in favor? Aye. Thank you, thanks, Devin.
Have a great night.